personally. Any of the council have a problem with that, or?
I guess
The reason I'm suggesting it is he has a lot of vital knowledge of the CCUA, especially in current issues that are going on within the CCUA, which is also why I've suggested Jack. I felt like institutional knowledge that they bring to the table is better than I could bring, and
Hello, thank you for joining us for our regularly scheduled council meeting on Tuesday, April 26th at 7 p.m. Madam Clerk, if you call the roll.
Charlie Davidson.
Here.
George Glover.
Here.
Ben Salcetta.
Here.
Kyle Nordick.
Here.
Tom Jones.
Here.
George Capps.
Here.
Brandy Bailey. Jim Schrader.
Here.
Mr. Mayor, you have a quorum.
Okay, we'll start with our invocation, and Councilman Ben will lead the pledge.
Thank you, Mayor. Will you please pray with me? Our gracious Heavenly Father, again, I just thank you for your amazing grace and just the love that you show us. And Lord, I just pray for this country. I just pray for Park City. And Lord, I just pray tonight at this meeting that you will give these people some wisdom and some direction of what they need to do. Lord, we just thank you for who you are and just the love you show us. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Okay, first thing on the agenda is approval of the agenda. George Glover.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Okay. And Charlie.
Second.
All right, the only thing I'm gonna ask is if you guys will go to, item 9. The next item prior to that is item 8. Make that 8A. If you look, the one before that's also 8. So, I would just ask you that you add that to your motion and your second.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to add 8A.
But, yeah, if you're good with it and Charlie's good with it, we're good.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay. All right, any further comments? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 8-0. Awards and presentations. Chief?
Mr. Mayor, council members, it's my pleasure to come before you this evening and present an award to one of our police officers, Officer Jordan Whitfield. Could you step forward, please? This is an incident that happened on February 28th of this year at about 10:03 p.m. This is a life-saving award. Officer Whitfield and Sergeant Keith Goodall with our department were dispatched to the Quick Trip to check on the report of a suicidal person. The man had reportedly told an employee that he wanted to kill himself and showed them some cuts on his forearm. The man left the area and Park City officers began to search for him. Officers from the Valley Center and Keachai Police Departments offered to assist in the search. Sergeant Kirk from the Valley Center Police Department spotted the man walking on I-135 north of 61st Street. Officer Whitfield arrived shortly thereafter. By the time the officers caught up with the man, he was sitting on the railing on the bridge over the Chisholm Creek. Officer Whitfield and Sergeant Kirk tried to talk with the man who was dangling his feet over the bridge, rocking back and forth and slapping his hands against his head. Sergeant Kirk kept talking with the man while Officer Whitfield moved into a position behind the man. Both officers were able to grab the man and pull him off the railing and safely to the ground where he was restrained. The man attempted to hurt himself by hitting his head against the concrete, but Officer Whitfield stepped in to prevent him from doing any more harm to himself. The man was taken by ambulance to Wichita Hospital for psychiatric evaluation. The police department policy provides for a life-saving award for preventing either the death or very serious injury to another person. There's no question that the actions of the two officers involved, which would be Officer Whitfield and Sergeant Kirk from Valley Center, either saved this man's life or at the very best, or at the very least, prevented severe harm that would have resulted if he had jumped from the bridge to the rocky surface, roughly 50 feet below. It's also refreshing to know that the police officers from our two neighboring communities were able to function as a cohesive team to help a person who was having a mental health crisis. Policy also grants the chief of police the authority to award the life-saving medal to members of other departments, and I'll be presenting an award to Sergeant Kirk with the Valley Center Police Department in the near future at one of their council meetings. So at this time, Officer Whitfield, if you'd step forward, I'll present you with the life-saving award. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate
job.
it.
Appreciate your good work.
Thank you, Chief. Dana?
Thank you, Mayor and Council, and it is an opportune time to follow that. We have a terrific police department, and it is my pleasure this evening to introduce to you our newest police officer. Aaron Kraus comes to the city as a currently certified law enforcement officer, which is great. He also knows this area. He has 6 years of experience as a police officer. He was a police officer at Bel Air, and then most recently at the city of Keachai. So I would like to introduce you to Aaron Kraus, who also has a bachelor's degree in criminal justice, and he's going to be
You'll come forward.
receiving his oath tonight.
You'll raise your right hand. On my honor,
On my honor,
I will never betray my badge,
I will never betray my badge,
my character,
my character,
my integrity,
my integrity,
or the public trust.
or the public trust.
I will always hold myself and others accountable
I will always hold myself and others accountable
for our actions.
for our actions.
I will always uphold the Constitution
I will always uphold the Constitution
of the United States,
of the United States,
the state of Kansas,
the state of Kansas,
my community,
my community,
and the Park City Police Department.
and the Park City Police Department.
Congratulations. Welcome. Okay, next we have the Arbor Day proclamation.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor and Council. This is a good time to let the public be aware that we have an arborist here at the City of Park City. I don't know if everyone was aware of that, but our park supervisor, Bruce Helberg, is also an arborist. It has become a tradition for the city to celebrate Arbor Day with the Chisholm-Trail Elementary School, and this Friday, Bruce will be there. He will give a program on the importance of trees, what an arborist does. In addition to that, we'll plant a tree on the grounds. So this is something that is always looked forward to. I will also be at the ceremony, and I will share this proclamation that we're doing this evening. So, for Arbor Day, whereas National Arbor Day, April 29th, 2022, marks the 150th anniversary of the Tree Planters Holiday. And whereas in 1872, the Nebraska Board of Agriculture established a special day be set aside for planting of trees. And whereas this holiday was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world. And whereas trees play a role in combating climate change, cleaning the air, producing life-giving oxygen, providing a habitat for wildlife, are a renewable source for paper, fuel for our fires and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. Now, therefore, the mayor and council does hereby proclaim April 29th, 2022 as Arbor Day in the city of Park City, Kansas, and urges all citizens to plant trees to promote the well-being of the community today and for future generations.
Thank you, Dana. And I'm trying to remember, do we need a motion for that?
Yes.
Okay, I would entertain a motion. Ben?
I'd go to make a motion to approve the resolution presented.
Okay, and Tom?
Proclamation.
Did I say presentation?
It said resolution.
Sorry, the proclamation, yes.
Thank you.
And to say thank you to Bruce for all of his hard work, because I know he puts a lot of time into this.
Okay, I have a motion from Ben and a second from Tom. No further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes 8-0. Thank you, Dana.
Thank you.
We have nobody signed up for public forum tonight. Staff reports. We have Finance Director Dee Grunder, please.
Good evening. Marlo's handing out a couple of reports to you so that you have a visual tonight of what I'm discussing. I did not place them in your packets because I continue to update the collections right up until the meeting time. In fact, the sales tax on there was received at 3 o'clock this afternoon, so I want to give you the best information I can give you. I'm including the same revenue streams tonight in my report that I've discussed in the past, with the addition of the casino revenue that Councilmember Bailey has requested. I'll also update you on where we're at on a couple of additional items. After a couple of years of COVID, it seems like what we're in right now might be our new normal. The first report I'll be looking at is the tax distributions. It says City of Park City tax distributions at the top. This provides the current year-to-date collections as well as the annual amounts received in the prior 3 years. A few rows up from the bottom of the report is a subtotal property taxes row that shows you how much we've been increasing in tax collections each year due to increasing valuations while maintaining the same mill levy. That said, right below that row are the final mill levies for each of those years. The reason you see some slight fluctuations in those from year to year is because the cities base their budgets on the estimated assessed valuation to determine the dollars to budget. And then once the county knows the final assessed valuation, they adjust the mill levy to provide the dollars that cities have budgeted. If the final assessed valuation is higher than the estimate they provided us, then the mill levy is adjusted down and vice versa. So even though we are attempting to levy the exact same mills as the previous years, we have no control over what the final mill levy turns out to be. Now, if you would look at the second report I provided, it has sales tax up in the upper left-hand corner. This provides as you can see, the sales tax collections have fared very well with increases every year. Our year-to-date collections through April this year are $610,570, which is an increase of $101,400, or 19.9% over the same time frame last year. Our 2022 budget is set at $1.5 million, which is the same amount as the 2020 total collections. So although it's still early in the year, it seems highly likely that we will collect considerably more than we budgeted. Next is franchise fees. Collections to the end of March this year are $211,000 as compared to $177,000 for the same time period last year, which is a 19.3% increase, or $34,000. I'll offer a bit of caution on this one though, because payments aren't always made the same time each month and not necessarily even the same month. So it's not necessarily comparing apples to apples in that particular case. The local revenue sharing is our casino revenue. Under the MOU between the City of Park City and the Wyandotte Nation, the city receives quarterly payments of $187,500, which is $750,000 per year. We've received 2 of the quarterly payments this year for a total of $375,000. Gas tax. These payments are received quarterly and receive them both from the state and the county, but the time period of the states and counties' quarters are different. We've received 2 quarters of the state payments and 1 quarter of the county payments to date. But they're still a little under, the 2022 year-to-date collections from both the state and county exceed 2021's for the same time frame, but they're still a little under 2020's. Just a reminder, though, that COVID began impacting our gas tax collections right about this time of year in 2020. So although 2020 started out well, the full year did not do well, as you can see on the report, compared to other years. 2022 is off to a fairly good start, but the gas tax is based on gallons purchased at the pump, and I suspect people might be buying less gas due to the skyrocketing price of gas. There have also been some attempts made by the legislature to reduce the gas tax. Some food for thought on this. Vendors who collect the gas tax are required to file and remit them to the state monthly, quarterly, or annually, which I assumed is probably based on the amount of each vendor's sales. And the tax is due by the 25th of the month following the end of their reporting period. Very high volume Kansas sellers may be required to make monthly gas tax prepayments. In those cases, the first 15 days of the current month's liability is due before the 25th of that same month. The state and county only distribute the gas tax to cities quarterly, and keep in mind those quarters aren't the same for the 2 entities. So there could be a very large lag between the time the gas tax is collected at the pump and the time we receive it from the state. I think about the best we can guesstimate is that all the gas tax funding we received in 2022 was very likely paid at the pump by the consumer sometime during the year of 2021. Transit gas tax. Similar to the gas tax, the transit gas tax started out really well in 2020, but as you can see, didn't do well for the rest of the year due to COVID. Although the first quarter of 2022 is fairly high, our collections this year will be negatively impacted due to losing the Best Western Hotel and another motel being closed for remodeling. The transit guest tax payments are deposited to the Convention and Tourism Fund, and they are that fund's only revenue stream. Although the C&T Fund began the year with an unencumbered cash balance of over $500,000, we have asked the C&T Committee to begin pulling back on spending. The past level of spending, if continued in the future, would exceed collections and deplete the cash balance over time. Liquor tax. We have had an extremely high first quarter payment of $39,000, which is more than half of 2021's full year collections. I reported to you last year that the third quarterly payment was a little under $29,000, and it was the highest we'd ever received in our in-code system that was implemented in 2011. The fourth quarter of 2021 ended up being about $70 more than the third quarter, and now the first quarter of 2022 is $10,000 more. Guess citizens have been thirsty. Interest income.
This.
In 2019, pre-COVID, the city received interest income totaling $246,000. In 2020, we received $35,500. In 2021, $2,500. The year-to-date collections in 2022 are $1,170. KMIP is currently paying 0.10%, which is the highest we've seen since the middle of March 2020, and Emprise is at 0.07%. We currently have a total of $19.4 million in the KMIP and Emprise accounts. A few additional items for you. On the ARPA funds, just a reminder that the full allocation was $1,184,857, and each tranche is $592,429. The first tranche was received on July 9th of 2021, so the second tranche is due about 2.5 months from now. I've previously reported to you that whenever an entity spends, not receives, at least $750,000 in federal funds in a year, they are required to have a single audit. A single audit is basically an auditor reviewing how an organization has managed their federal grant funds to make sure they are in compliance with all the rules and regulations of the grant award, as well as the uniform grant guidance. A single audit is very in-depth, time-consuming for both the city and the auditor, and expensive. For 2022 through 2024, our auditor, BKD's proposal was $5,300 to $5,600 a year for just a single audit. However, some good news. The Office of Management and Budget has provided a technical update that became effective April 8th this year. It now indicates that if a city's Arbor grant puts them over the federal expenditures of $750,000, so in other words, if without the Arbor grant, if they would be under the $750,000 threshold, then a single audit is not required. However, an alternative approach is required. The alternative is intended to reduce the burden of the full single audit, with the auditor only looking into half of the compliance requirements that would have been required under a single audit. My interpretation of this is that while it still will not be quick and easy, and there will still be a cost to those procedures, it seems likely it will require about half the time and half the cost, I would assume. For entities that have received ARPA funds, April 30th is the deadline to complete and submit a project and expenditure report. It goes to the U.S. Treasury through an online portal. Even though we have not spent any of the funds to date, we're still required to submit the report. I must admit, it's generally pretty hard to intimidate me, but I have been very much intimidated by the tons of ARPA emails, each with many links to lengthy documents, and all the reporting information I have received practically daily in my inbox, both from the U.S. Treasury and the Kansas Office of Recovery on this grant. I've also watched many webinars and tutorials, and in hindsight, I really wish I had logged all the time I've spent on this grant, even though we haven't spent a dime yet, because it's been an astronomical amount of time. Don't ever think federal money is free, because as they say, time is money. On March 11th, I began the process of setting up an online account to even be able to access the reporting portal. Since that time, I've experienced problem after problem, each time emailing the Kansas Office of Recovery until they were unable to get me past the issues I was encountering, and at that point, I started emailing the U.S. Treasury, who had to get their IT department involved. It took several days for each of my emails to be responded to, and just this morning, a month and a half later, the issues were finally resolved and the appropriate contacts have been set up. So, only 3 working days before the reporting deadline, I'm just now able to proceed with even starting on the project and expenditure report. Let's hope I won't continue to have the technical difficulties that I've had so far. On Thursday last week, only a week and 2 days before the reporting deadline, the Treasury came out with a webinar to demonstrate that they have tremendously simplified the reporting process for entities receiving less than $10 million in ARPA funding and that are claiming the full award under the revenue replacement category for spending the funds. I was extremely relieved by that news, but they certainly could have done that much sooner to have saved small entities like us a lot of time and stress in trying to understand all the reporting minutiae that now only much larger entities that have a lot more staff must report on. Kansas Set-Off Program. Before the state started sending out tax refunds in January this year, all debts dated through the end of 2020 were sent to the Kansas Set-Off Program for collection, so we're now all caught up. Big kudos to my staff for that. They worked hard. I'm very pleased to report that for the 3-month period of January through March of 2022, we have collected $16,848. And that's not counting the additional amount we receive related to administrative fees. I'd reported to you last fall that for some unknown reason, 8 years of set-off program payments were posted to liability accounts rather than being posted to the customer's debt accounts, and staff was working on applying those payments to the debt. That process is complete now as well, and all set-off payments are now being posted directly to customer accounts. Staff is now working on making sure the unpaid balance on each outstanding bad debt account is the same on our records as compared to the set-off program's records, and some of those records are very old. And they're making the needed adjustments to make sure they do match now. So that's the extent of my report. I'd be glad to try to answer any questions you might have.
Not seeing any. She answered everybody's questions. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion? Charlie?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Good. Motion passes.
I abstained, John.
Sorry?
I wasn't here, I abstained.
Okay. 701. Thank you, George. All right. We'll move to new business. Discuss and consider adopting the governing body manual. So we've gone through this in several workshops and got to what I think just about everybody's added something or discussed certain items that were on there. So I think we're ready to bring it to the council and you guys decide. Charlie.
I make a motion to adopt the governing body manual. Quick question I have on this, I would like to put in some sort of standardized review where we review it maybe every even year or something, just for, as things change. Can I do that here? Do I do that here?
Probably not in the motion, but we'll do it probably more as a organizationally.
Okay, that's fine. So then I make a motion to adopt the governing body manual.
Okay. Ben.
Second.
George. George?
I tell you, I'm gonna support this, but I've been very plain from the start. I don't see the need for it. We already have a code of procedure, and besides, our attorney sat there several meetings ago and told us plain out that you're the council, you can do whatever you please. So if we can do that, why are we putting together this? If I vote 5 people, we can do whatever we please. Like I say, I'm gonna support it because I don't want to be difficult, but I really don't see a need for it. We already have a code of procedure.
Tom.
I agree with George, but I also was going to say that we've added some stuff in there, council salaries and stuff like that. So anytime any of that stuff changes, we have to update it anyway. So will this be published, or is this something that we're just going to pass and it's going to go in a file? Okay.
I believe we took the salaries out,
I missed that.
just so that it didn't have to be changed. That was one of the things that came up in the workshop was we want it to be fairly low maintenance. So we took that.
Several things in there I didn't necessarily agree with, but I'm going to go with the council on this, so to be in accordance with.
Okay. George? Sorry.
Well, I'd like to say another thing. I remember a few years ago at a league meeting, a young lady was the mayor of Abilene, Kansas, very articulate young lady, and she was a speaker, and she talked, don't ever, her advice, don't ever let anybody put you in a box. Don't let people put you in a box. Don't tie yourself down to something that you might have to change, is what she was saying. She was a very articulate speaker. She was a young African-American woman, and her father owns a big truck line up there in Abilene. And that always stuck with me, what she was saying, is if you put yourself in a box, then you're tied down there. And as a council, we don't need to be in a box. We need to be open-minded. We need to be able to move on different issues, and we don't need to be tied to something that says we can't do it. That, to me, that's just not productive. But I am going to support this.
Okay.
Just.
Okay. All right, I'm not seeing any more discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes 8-0. We'll move to item 7, a resolution fixing time and place of public hearing related to dangerous and unsafe structure located at 1915 East Fairchild. Doug?
Mayor and council, our building official has filed with the city clerk a notice in writing accompanied by the photographs that I think have been handed out to you also. A statement that the residential structure located at 1915 Fairchild in the city of Park City is, because of conditions that he has noted, a dangerous and unsafe structure.
Okay, we'll go back. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Under state law, that's the initiating act in a process that provides due process for the owner of the property. And so what you have in front of you tonight is a resolution that sets a date for a public hearing where the owner, an occupant, or any other lien holders or interested parties can appear before the governing body to show cause why the property should not be declared dangerous and unsafe, and either remediated or demolished. You'll notice the date's quite a long time in the future, June 14th of this year. Under state law, it's required that this resolution be published twice on the same day for 2 weeks, and then 30 days elapse after that. A copy of the resolution will be mailed, certified mail, to the owner. And then on June 14th at 7:30, any interested party will be able to show up and either say that they have done something in that interim period or that they have some plan. And then at that point, the governing body will make its findings on whether to declare the property dangerous and unsafe.
Thank you, Doug. So your suggestion, June 14th, 7:30 is the date and time?
That's correct.
Okay. Ben?
Yeah, so this isn't, this isn't our first rodeo with this property in the time that I've been on council. About, 4 years ago, I believe, we had to tear down the structure in the backyard. Already, in general, I think it's always good to be a proponent of property rights and such. Anytime that we're dealing with someone's possessions. That said, it's also important that we make sure that we're doing our best to protect the safety and the health of those around. And this structure is one that definitely does not meet either of those two issues in terms of making sure our public areas are kept safe and healthy. So I would definitely support this, but I'll wait and to see if anybody else is going to chime in on it.
Brandy?
Is anyone living in this location right now or staying
No.
in it? And have we been in contact with the property owner? Do they respond to anything?
I can't answer that. We have been in contact with her in the past. She has been unresponsive. The structure that was torn down, which was, I guess loosely you could call it a garage, was falling in on itself. She did not appear at that public hearing when she had the opportunity. So she will be given notice of this resolution, but this has existed probably pretty close to probably the 4 years that Ben referenced. I think it was somewhat in this, the pictures that you have in front of you, that it was not totally different inside to the extent that we could get any information about the inside. I think 4 years ago, there was still somebody living in the structure. I'm not certain of that. But I don't think anything significant has really happened with all that stuff and that condition over the past several years.
Well, that was my next question is how long has it been like this? Was it like this when we did what we did back a few years ago? And if so, how come we didn't maybe do something then and we let it continue on?
4 years ago. Yeah, all I can tell you is there was a police incident where it was almost impossible to get access to somebody that needed medical assistance in that place. If I'm right, they took him or her out the window. Is that? Yeah. So it was almost inaccessible 3 or 4 years ago.
Okay.
So.
And do we have complaints on file from neighbors for like smells or rodents or any of that?
Yeah, I don't know, and I'm sorry that Bob's not available. He had a medical matter that made it impossible for him to be here tonight. He could answer that. I don't know how to answer that, Brandy.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, the pictures here, I mean, pretty much tell you. I'm just curious.
Okay, Ben?
I did have one extra question, and then I'll go ahead and make a motion on that. So last time, we had to assess the special assessments for that. And maybe this is more towards Sean on this one there. Do we know, did they ever pay on those special assessments that, or are those still outstanding? Are we going to do this? I mean, obviously, if we would go to foreclosure, it would still get covered in that sale, but,
And that is my assumption. I'll check while we're.
okay, and that's fine. I mean, I just was wondering if that's an issue. Like I said, if it goes to sale, we'll be fine, but, just wanted to make sure on that. I would go ahead and let me get over there so I can maybe get it. Go ahead and make a motion here then that we, approve Resolution 11-17-2022, a resolution fixing a time and place for a hearing where the owner of lien holder of record or any occupant of the structure located at 1915 East Fairchild, Park City, Kansas, may appear and show cause why such structure should not be condemned and ordered repair or demolished.
Thank you, Ben. We have a motion. Kyle.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Motion by Ben, second by Kyle. And I'm seeing no further discussion. Again, our date is June 14th at 7:30 PM here at council chambers. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 8-0. Okay, we'll move to item 8. Chief, discuss and consider approving the purchase of 2 replacement police vehicles and related equipment.
Mr. Mayor, council members, the police department needs to replace 2 police vehicles that have exceeded the age and mileage on the vehicle replacement plan. We attempted to obtain 3 bids for 2 2022 Ford Police Interceptor utility vehicles. That's the Ford Explorer. As you may know, vehicles in general are very difficult to get right now, and police vehicles are no exception to that. In fact, I think it's even worse for police vehicles right now. Rustiak Ford stated the last day to order the 2022 year model is March 25th of 2022, and they don't know when they'll have 2023 pricing. In the past, they have not had, I think it's been, I can't remember the last time we purchased from them. It's been a number of years ago because the state contract had gone to a different dealership. Shawnee Mission Ford has had the state contract in the past, but they're not able to obtain anything right now. Don Hatton Ford stated they have no 2022 Ford or Chevrolet police vehicles available. Pricing for 2023 Ford and Chevrolet vehicles will not be available for 30 to 45 days. Shawnee Mission Ford is the only dealer of the 3 that's currently able to obtain 2022 vehicles. They already have some Ford Explorers on order, which are expected to arrive around July of this year. They order vehicles kind of in bulk, and a lot of them are already committed to agencies or government organizations that have ordered them, but they also order extras on top of that. So they have done something they've done in the past, which is to informally, no deal or no obligation on our part, but to hold those options available for us so that I could bring it to council and present it, but there is no obligation on our part if we back out of it, because they'll sell them with no problem. I do have a correction to make, and I'd like to thank Councilman Nordick for noticing that if I just go into that, the original quote for the vehicle, per vehicle, was $36,205 with a delivery charge of $182 per vehicle. The total for that was $72,770 for 2 vehicles. The quote was off on the math was off a little bit on the written quote that you have, a few dollars. Shawnee Mission Ford's quote is the price that they provide through Mid-America Council of Public Procurement, which is a purchasing cooperative that's comprised of mostly government agencies on both sides of the Kansas-Missouri border, generally in the Kansas City area. The MACPP price that was provided by Shawnee Mission Ford didn't match what the price was on their website. So we contacted them again for a second quote, and they came back with a different price, which did match the quote on the MACP website. So the updated quote is $35,473. That includes the $2,000 and some additional options and accessories that are added to the base price. but the base price does now match that which was on the MACPP website. The updated quote is $35,473 per vehicle. It's still $182 per vehicle for delivery, a total of $70,946. So this is $1,828 less than the quote that you have before you for 2 vehicles. In other words, $914 per vehicle less. Quotes for the vehicles, the vehicle equipment, and the upfitting charges are shown on the attachments in your packet. We didn't obtain other quotes for the vehicle equipment and the upfitting charges for several reasons. There's only 2 businesses in the Wichita metro area that do emergency vehicle upfitting. We've gotten bids in the past from the other one here in Wichita, and they've been higher. We've been satisfied. In fact, the work has been very good with the one in Andover that we typically use. The one in Andover, Superior Emergency Vehicle Equipment, they provide a lifetime warranty on their work, but we have to take the vehicle to them, or they have to come here. They have to do the work. In other words, we can't work on it ourselves or have somebody else do it because that violates the warranty. If we split up our fleet between upfitters, then that creates some difficulties with trying to make sure we have the right upfitter do the correct work. And maybe more importantly, the equipment is getting pretty standard across the fleet, so that when the officers get in one car and they work and then they go get in another car, it's not entirely different from one car to the next, which takes a while to adjust to. At some point, equipment becomes obsolete and you have to go to a different model, but it's fairly standard right now. But the other upfitter sells different brands of equipment for the most part, and that makes it more difficult for the officers. Staff recommends purchasing the following vehicles and equipment. This is the updated information. From Shawnee Mission Ford, 2 Ford Interceptor utility vehicles, 2022 year model. The price is $35,473 each, plus $182 each for delivery. The total is $70,946. The vehicle equipment and installations, $26,683. The mud flaps, graphics, and the floor mats additional bring the total purchase cost down to $99,092.44. And the fiscal impact, the police department budget includes $112,000 under capital outlay that was earmarked for police vehicle replacement. So I'd be glad to answer any questions if you have them.
Kyle?
Yeah, Chief, I appreciate you going back out there, talking to them, getting that updated pricing. I also like to see that we're working with Serve. They're a very well-known company in your guys' area, expertise and everything. So with that, I will make the motion to approve $99,092.44 for 2 2022 Ford Police Interceptor utility vehicles from Shawnee Mission Ford and the related equipment and installation as quoted to be paid out of the General Fund Police Department.
Thank you. Charlie?
I'll second for discussion. I just had a couple questions just for my own knowledge. How's your other vehicles on your fleet? Will this get us through this budget year, or are you looking at any other vehicles?
We've got 2 that we've ordered, pickup trucks that we ordered, I think, in May of last year, and they haven't arrived yet. And they're saying we hope October of this year. So what that's done, we've been short on people, which has helped us with the mileage and so forth, but with vehicles coming in late like this, it's shoving the mileage up on all of our existing vehicles. Okay. So that's why we need to order now, because it's going to take us a while to get these, and I think it's going to bring us where we need to be. Yes.
Okay. And what do we do with the vehicle? Maybe Sean, what do we do with the vehicles that are taken out of service?
They're sold on Purple Wave.
Oh, they are. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Good. No further comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 8-0. We'll move to item 8A, discuss and consider approving purchase of zero-turn lawnmower. Simon?
Mayor and council, this year, we budgeted $15,000 to purchase a new, zero-turn lawnmower for the street department. We created a set of specifications, with the, trying to use some of the local vendors here to try to figure out what would best fit the needs of the city. So we sent these out to bid to 4 different companies. We received bids back from 3 of them. CSTK has provided a bid for $14,091.25 for a grasshopper that meets our specifications. They're the lowest bid for a diesel mower, and that is our recommendation to purchase. Stand for any questions.
George Glover.
Yeah, I don't have a reason to, I appreciate the bids, you know, and you providing those. I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion to approve the purchase of a zero-turn lawnmower from CSTK in the amount of $14,091.25 to be paid out of the Special Streets and Highway Fund.
Charlie?
A second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any other comments? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 8-0. Moving on to item 9, discuss and consider a contract with Andale Construction for street improvements of 61st in Jacksonville.
So on the February 22nd, City Council approved the 2022 road improvement plan option to install the Oxcon overlay at the 61st and Jacksonville intersection. Bid documents were created along with the specifications for this overlay. We sent this out to all the local roadwork contractors and also posted it on the Kansas Construction News website. On April 21st, the city received only one bid. It was from Andale Construction for a lump sum total of $329,187 to perform the road improvement work, to provide the traffic control, and to replace the road striping. I'll stand for any questions.
Kyle?
Yeah, Simon, from notice to proceed, how long is this project going to take?
That's an excellent question. I don't have the information for that at this time. I assume within the next 30 days, but with everything heating up right now, I'm not 100% sure on that.
Yeah.
Do you know how the duration of the project, once they start to stop, was that in the contract?
It's supposed to be pretty quick. It's not in the contract. We didn't have a working day set up on this, but they're talking like a couple weeks or something. It's supposed to be a really fast process, so it depends on all the subgrade issues that we find. But I assume within 30 days it'd be complete once it starts.
Okay, Ben?
Yeah, I'm ready to get this thing done so we can be done talking about special street and highway fund money for 2022 street projects since we're already blowing it out. So I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion to approve and authorize the mayor to execute an agreement with Andale Construction in an amount not to exceed $329,187 to be paid out of the special streets and highway fund.
Tom?
I'm going to second, but I've got a couple of questions. The road up there, you're talking about an overlay. There's a significant amount of base that's gone. Are they going to fix that?
Yes, sir. They'll fix
Okay,
all that.
I want to make sure we're just not going, yeah, okay.
It'll all be leveled. This Oxcon system has a fiberglass layer, like a mesh layer that goes in there also with the leveling cement, and it's almost rubberized. So
But there's places that needs to be dug out and re-rocked and.
Yeah, they're going to take care of all those issues.
And
Yes, sir.
that's all inclusive?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Kyle?
Simon, earlier you just said that we didn't include any working day inclusions in our contract. How come?
Because it's going to be a pretty fast project. It's not a project that's going to drag on. This whole process is really fast. I think they split it up in a couple lanes each. They're going to do it at night. It should be a pretty fast project. This is not like the roundabout project that drags on for days and days.
Right,
It's
but
pretty
that,
quick.
but as a municipality, that is your, your clause to make sure that work gets done in a timely manner. So that's just a little, I understand there's a perception that the project could be done, but perception can always turn out to be the ugly beast in the end, and then we don't have a clause to fall back on. So I'd like to see that in the future to be in there.
Okay.
Okay. George Capps?
Well, I agree with him. I remember 53rd Street. that was forever, you know? They was gonna come in there and whip that out. And that thing took, how long was we shut down? For months. And I agree, there needs to be on that contract where they're fined if they go past a certain amount of time. That needs to be on our contracts. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Tom?
I just got a comment that George is making there. They slid 60, or 53rd Street about 6 months because of 3 light poles. And so there's always something out there that'll get you. And the crew that needed to move those light poles were in Kansas, western Kansas working. They didn't have anybody to do it, so we just sat, so. You know.
Once this project gets going, they can't just stop. It has to get done. I mean, the whole process, it's a step-by-step process. That's why it's so fast. Once they get started, it has to there's no option other than to get it done, because they can't just stop and walk away.
And this one doesn't require right-of-way, or it doesn't require, it's just a resurfacing of what we exist already, so. Okay, we've had a good discussion on it. Sean, did you have anything further?
No, we'll
Okay.
include it.
Okay, all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, great, we're gonna get that intersection fixed. Okay, item 10, discuss and consider approving contracts and agreements for Hackman Park pickleball courts. Simon.
So back in February 2021, council approved a quote from Versa Sports to construct 3 pickleball courts at the Hackman Park for a total cost of $20,900. Versa Sports never began the construction of the courts themselves, so we had to send this project out for rebid back in 2021. This contract was awarded, the concrete portion of the contract was awarded to SmithCon, utilizing the Versa Sports design. Back in December, the council approved the agreement with the Wichita Fence to install fence, and Multicon to paint the new court and install the nets. All the work was performed in accordance to the design, and once the court opened to the public back in March of this year, it was quickly found that the court is about 10 feet too narrow or too short. There's 5 feet on the west and east sides of the court that it needs to be extended. I have to apologize, I really don't know a whole lot about pickleball, so it's not something that I would have ever realized until somebody that knew what they were doing tried to play on it and realized there was not enough room. SmithCon, Wichita Fence, and Multicon were asked to submit bids for the work necessary to complete the widening of the courts. SmithCon provided us a quote for $6,890 to extend the court to 5 feet on each side. Wichita Fence quoted us $2,126.17 to remove the fence and then to replace it with the additional width. And then Multicon provided us a quote for $1,500 to paint the new extensions. So we also sent out the bid for the lighting. We created the specifications, and K.E. Miller sent out the bid request to 5 electrical contractors and also posted on the Kansas Construction News website. We received 2 bids, with Sims Electric being the lowest qualified bidder at $30,050 for 1 clock spring switch, and $30,500 if we put 1 clock spring switch at each of the entrances to the pickleball court. There's 2 gates there. The estimated lead time on materials is about 6 to 8 weeks, which is fine because it'll allow some time for that concrete work to be finished before the concrete work and the fence to be reinstalled before the lighting is installed. This purchase is unbudgeted. It'll be paid utilizing the general fund parks budget. And if you guys need grand totals, I have those calculated out.
Okay.
With either option.
Okay. Kyle.
Yeah, Simon, with your original solicitation for Versa Sport, did you identify the dimensions of the new pickleball court that needed to be made? Or retrofitted?
Versa Sports is supposed to be the expert in building these things. And
Okay, so I have a problem with that statement there because then we're relying on them. As a project manager for a municipality and we're using taxpayer funding, you should be the person who needs to be the expert and then rely on them to second check that. So by not doing that, now we've put ourselves in a $10,516.17 revision of an issue. We furthered that issue when we did not do it a second time when we went to our second vendor. So that right there is why I stress the importance of procurement policies, specifications, and getting things done.
George?
Yeah, it just seems like this project has gone bad from the get-go as far as procuring people to come in and do the project. Was anybody overseeing this project? Was there a supervisor that was looking at the specs and saying, instead of realizing from someone who was playing on the court, an individual or resident who says this is too short, was there anybody in management or supervision checking it to make sure the specs were there?
Absolutely, we built it to the specs that Versa Sport provided us. So,
Sorry, let me hop in. So Versa did the design of the size and the dimensions of it, and then we had the concrete poured separately. And it's poured exactly the same size, but I guess an analogy to use would be like, it'd be like having a basketball court with a wall at your out of bounds. I mean,
Why the 5-foot difference on the east and west side?
because of the bounce of the ball, it bounces out and you have to hit it from the out of bounds area. So,
Yeah, okay,
And
it just
true-
doesn't make any sense to me. This
I
is
got
just
you.
asinine.
And that's just it. I mean, and that's kind of the position Simon's in, is he hasn't played. I mean, our folks don't know, just like you don't. And I mean, most people who don't would not know. I mean, that you need an extra 5 or 8 feet on the backside.
Yeah, but-
And I would say too, like, the only difference is we didn't know about this on the front end, and yes, it is a headache, but even if we would have known at the front end, we would have still had this $10,000.
I don't know about that. I think if we knew up front, we would be aware of that. Someone specifically who had knowledge and understanding of the specs of this thing would have the understanding of knowing, hey, we need to maybe move it out 5 more foot
But we
on
still
this side
would
and that side.
We would have still had to pay for it, though. We would have still had to move it out. The materials would have been the same.
It would have been an original bid.
So we're still, either way, we're still 10,000 in the hole, according with what Kyle's comments were.
We would have likely paid $10,000 more, other than taking the fence down that was already put
Taking
up.
the rebar out now and having to go back in and tear it out. Now, the fencing and stuff? Is the fencing already in there too, or is
Yeah.
it just the rebar?
Yeah, but the fencing's not in the concrete.
Okay. That's all I have.
Thank you, George. Brandy?
My question's in regard to the electrical. Can you tell me what a clock spring switch is?
it's it's just one of those light switches where you turn it, kind of like if you go to the YMCA, you go in the hot tub, and they have they have a push button there. But some of them have like a switch you just turn, you spin, and then it's a timer, and it turns off after a certain amount of time. So it's not on all night long.
So what's the difference, so the lowest qualified bidder at $30,050 with 1 clock spring switch, or 30,000, oh, I see. Why so much, why only like a $450 difference for a 2 clock spring switch? Where's the other, what's the biggest piece of that 30,000 then?
The conduit going to the other gate, probably, because it's all gonna be underground.
Okay.
Thank you, Brandy. Ben?
Okay, so sorry, just to clarify, so it's $30,050 for one. And is it an additional 30,000, or you're just saying it's an additional 400?
So
Additional $450.
450, yeah.
Okay, for that.
To get a second switch on either side.
Okay. Perfect. No, I get and I do understand where the frustration is coming from on this in terms of you know, we want to make sure that we're getting it right the first time or the second time. But at the same point, you know, the one thing I will say though is that I don't think we can expect you know, a staff of 50 to be experts in everything. Now, I do think that we need to make sure we're doing the proper work to make sure we have a good understanding of what projects we're getting involved in and to get as much education as possible on it. But again, I would also stress, it would have been nice to get this in on the front end, but we didn't. I think it's something that we should take care of in terms of the fact that, we've already put a lot of money into this project to get to where we're at. And, to stop short because we're $10,000 out, as frustrating as it is, I think it's something that we should do. So, I'm going to make a motion here to approve the quote from Smith Con in the amount of $6,890 for concrete work, the quote from Wichita Fence in the amount of $2,126.17 for the fence, the quote from Multicon in the amount of $1,500 for paint, and the bid from Sims Electric in the amount of, and I'm just making sure there's only a $450 difference between the two to add a second one. Okay, so then $30,500 for the two switches for lights to be paid out of the general fund Parks Department.
Kyle?
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Oh, I had mine hit.
Tom?
Yeah. We've been down this road before, and we keep stepping in it and just moving on down to the next project where we don't know what it actually is gonna cost until we get done. We've gone and built things before where we thought it was gonna cost $20,000, and $200,000 later, we regret we even got into it. Do we know how much this is costing altogether now?
Well, I don't know, I don't recall it.
Not tonight, just, I'd like to know how much we end up paying for that pickleball court when we get done.
Yeah, absolutely. I can get those numbers for you.
Because I think it's gonna be startling.
I don't. I mean, it's one of those things, it's a service to the community. It's just
I
like all the
understand that.
parks, it's like the ball fields, it's like the BMX track that we spend a lot of money on, but it's services to our people, I mean.
I understand, but when we piecemeal, we end up spending more money than if we'd just gone out. And it's kind of like somebody else said, did we know that 10 feet needed to be on there, or 5 feet needed to be on there, and we go, no. Well, we should have known that before we bid it. So.
Okay.
All right.
All right, we've had a good discussion. Ben?
Yeah, I just want to say, and again, just in finishing up so we can vote on this, is I think that the points of contention, or the points that have needed to be stressed, have been stressed already in terms of what we're asking staff to make sure that gets done. So I don't see a point in continuing to labor this point out from here on out. I think we've made it pretty clear.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 8-0, thank you. Item 11, discuss and consider approving the purchase of water meters. Simon?
For the past few years, council has authorized the purchase of water meters from Metron Farnier. I'm just gonna call it Metron, a lot easier. Last year, a total of 100 1-inch meters and 100 5/8 3/4 meters were ordered at a cost of $94,300 and installed by Public Works staff. With the accelerated growth of the city and the extended lead time for parts and materials, staff is requesting approval to order 50 1-inch meters from Metron for a total not to exceed $28,500, or approximately $570 per meter. These meters only have about a 10-day lead time once to ship once they're ordered. However, staff is having an issue with these Metron meters right now. The batteries are not lasting. As of now, we currently have 56 meters with deadheads throughout the city. Each month, we're spending time and resources replacing meters with deadheads, resulting in a loss of productivity. Staff is currently researching options as to where to go in the future. I'll return to council next month to discuss ordering more meters and the possibility of switching manufacturer. This order will be enough to handle the new construction for the next couple of months. I'll stand for any questions.
Kyle?
Yes, Simon. So the purchase of these 51-inch meters, what is the use for those? Is that for
This is 100% new construction.
100% new construction, which we just approved a couple of months ago to a $100,000 contract with Wilkes, who is going to provide all the materials? So
Not meters. We provide the meters.
So you provide the meters, okay. So if the 50 meters are going towards new construction, what are we doing to remediate the 56 deadhead meters?
So I'm waiting on replacement heads to come in right now. I don't have any replacement heads in stock, so when they come in, we'll start replacing the heads on the meters that are dead right now.
So those meter heads, are those at a cost to the city, or are they under warranty?
No, they're under warranty.
What is the warranty for these meters?
The meters have a 10-year full replacement warranty and then a 10-year prorated on top of that, so 20 years total. And I told you 10 years, but it's actually 10 years full, 10 years prorated.
Okay, thank you, Simon.
Jim, I think I accidentally blinked you out.
Yeah, you kind of just answered it, but it's a battery, but it's not a replaceable battery. You have to replace the whole head.
That's correct, yeah. When they build the heads, they put some kind of epoxy that seals up that battery inside the head itself, and we can't replace that battery.
Okay.
Okay, Ben?
Yeah, so I guess one concern I do have, you said that the Metron Farnier ones that we're purchasing are having issues there. Suggesting a purchase of 50 to carry us through for several months of new construction. But we're looking for a new company. I don't see the point of buying this many of a bad product.
So that's an excellent question. The reason we want to order these right now is to get us by. The lead time, pretty much we've reached out to Census, and I had a meeting with Neptune today. Census meters, you're looking at a year-long lead time, 52 weeks. The Neptunes are about 6 to 8 weeks lead time. And then we're also looking into the Badgers, but I'm having a hard time finding the local vendor on the Badgers right now, so.
You said these ones are what, 10-day lead time?
These are a 10-day lead.
Is there a cost per unit difference if we order a lower amount?
I think the meters are gonna cost the same amount, the $570. However, if we don't order some meters now, we're not gonna have enough for new construction.
I mean, I'm not saying don't order any, but it seems if there's only a 10-day lead time on these ones, and while we're still researching, it seems like it might be better to not buy a larger bulk of possibly bad or deficient meters if possible.
And that's your decision. I know right now that I have at least 25 houses that are on the list to have new meters installed. It's
Within
not
what
gonna give
length
us a
of
lot
time?
of extra.
Sorry, within what length of time for those 25 meters?
As soon as Wilkes comes out and does the services, we'll be installing those.
So we're talking a couple weeks?
Right.
Time frame, okay.
I will say, I've had an email from a developer, home builder, that is very frustrated that we don't have any meters.
I mean, I'm all for ordering some, I just don't, like I said, if we're gonna have issues with them, I don't know how long, the 56 that we've had issues with, that we're having issues with, how old are these roughly, and?
I don't know exactly when the city decided to switch over to Metron, but I would assume they're probably less than 5 years old.
Okay. I mean, I'm all for ordering enough to make sure we can get the 25 done, plus a few, like I said, that was my question was.
The other thing I want to point out too, like, and construction's down this year, but last year we built 101, we pulled 101 permits for houses, for new builds. It's down right now. However, remember, we're going into the heart of the construction season. So, Jim?
I don't really have any more questions, and I've been listening to this. I think what I'll do here is I'll go ahead and move to approve the purchase of 51-inch meters from Metron Farnier for an amount not to exceed $28,500 to be paid out of the Utility Fund Water Department.
Kyle was next.
I'll second the motion for discussion. Quick thing, Simon, just, you're not gonna find a local rep for Badger because, oh my God, it just slipped my mind. But because their representative is Midwest Meter, and it's out of Illinois, and he's the territory rep. I've got his phone number, so after the meeting, if you and I want to visit, it's an 8 to 10 week lead time on those Badger meters.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. George Capps.
Well, I guess I'm a little confused here. I've heard that there's 50 for new construction, and I've heard that there's 26 of them going to replace stuff. I'm not sure what we're doing. I'm not sure what we're doing here. We're talking about 2 or 3 different things.
Right. So we need to order 50 meters for new construction over the next couple months.
And what about the 26 you're talking about that need to be replaced?
The
Are they
third-
coming out of the 50?
No, that's 50, I have 56 dead heads,
56
5,
that
6.
needs to be replaced.
But we're gonna replace the heads when the heads come in. They're gonna warranty those out. I'm only telling you that we have 56 dead heads to tell you that we have an issue with these meters.
Okay, well, we was talking about two different things. I wish we'd just stick to one item at a time.
Good. Good.
Yeah, that's good.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 8-0.
Thank you.
Item 12, discuss and consider approval of bid from Apex Excavation for water, sanitary sewer, stormwater, drainage, and paving improvements for Cambridge Valley Second Edition. Sean?
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Cambridge Valley Second Edition is located west of Hillside and just south of Fairchild. The developer presented petitions for water, sanitary sewer, stormwater drainage, and paving back in June of 2021 and was approved by the council. A bid opening was conducted earlier last week, I should say, April 20th, with a total of 5 companies submitting bids. Apex Excavating submitted the lowest bid for a total of $608,932, which was below the engineer's estimate of $716,743. And I have them broken up there as far as water, sanitary sewer, pavement, stormwater. Attached are copies of the bid tabulation and the Apex Excavation contract. It is budgeted and staff recommends approval.
Thank you, Sean. Brandy?
I don't have any questions, so I move to approve the bid tabulation, authorize the mayor to finalize and execute a contract with Apex Excavation in the amount not to exceed $608,932 to be paid out of the Capital Projects Fund.
Thank you, Brandy. Jim?
That?
Okay, we have a motion by Brandy, second by Jim. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 8-0. Okay, we move to item 13. Discuss and consider resolution determining the advisability of making certain internal improvements in the city of Park City, Kansas, sanitary sewer system, Prairie Hills Edition.
Yes, sir. The next 3 are all petitions. They're for sanitary sewer, then water, and then for paving. The first one, sanitary sewer. The attached petition was filed with the city clerk proposing improvements to the city's sanitary sewer system. It was signed by the owners of record of more than one-half the area liable for assessment for the proposed improvements, and therefore the petitioners are requesting that such improvements be made without notice and hearing as required by KSA 12-6A01. The improvements include a sanitary sewer collection system, including the necessary manholes, cleanouts, appearances to serve the area described as the improvement district, all in accordance with city standards and plans and specifications as prepared for or approved by the city engineer. The estimated probable construction cost for the proposed improvements for the sanitary system is $680,000, with the said estimated cost to be increased at a pro rata rate of 1% per month from the date of adoption. The improvement district to be assessed is lots 10 through 25, block 3, lots 10 through 14, block 4, lots 1 through 33, block 5, lots 46 through 76, Prairie Hills Edition, City of Park City. The method of assessment is equally between all the lots, with 0% being paid by the city and 100% paid by the improvement district.
I do have 2 people signed up to talk on this item, but Ben, go ahead.
I was just gonna make a motion, so.
Go ahead.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve Resolution 1118-2022, a resolution determining the advisability of making of certain internal improvements in the city of Park City, Kansas, making certain findings with respect thereto, and authorizing and providing for the making of the improvements in accordance with such findings, subject to letter of credit.
Tom?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Okay, I have Kyle Tucker has signed up. He's from the Prairie Hills neighborhood. He's signed up for item 13 to 15, but probably what you're gonna say is gonna cover it all in one route, so you don't have to come up each time, so go ahead, Kyle.
Yes, sir. Yeah, thank you, council members. I appreciate it. I've lived in Park City since 2018. In 2020, I began to serve on the board of directors for the Prairie Hills Edition, which is one of those that are there. I've been serving as the treasurer, and I work here locally at Koch Industries as a procurement operations supervisor. So a vested interest in the community. I'm here at the behest of several of our homeowners. In addition, one of whom is with me tonight, in addition to speaking on behalf of our board, which was not able to make it this evening. Our neighborhood comprises really two developments, the one that Sean mentioned, Prairie Hills Addition, as well as Prairie Hills, which Prairie Hills is 41 duplexes, so 82 doors to the northeast. And currently we have 58 single-family homes. With the addition of these improvements, it would add 47 lots to our area, so bringing our total up to 105 single-family homes. Some concerns that we have right now, currently the neighborhood, which includes both of these developments, has only two entrances, both of which are to Hydraulic Street, a north entrance and a south entrance. The north entrance is Cedar Tree Street, and then the south entrance is Kerman Street. Cedar Tree runs north, runs east and west, pretty straight through. And it connects to Kerman Street, which kind of loops around from the south entrance there. I know, John and Tom, when you came through campaigning, you've seen our development and how that lovely intersection gets a lot of nice traffic through it. Recently, you guys put in a yield sign for us, which was appreciated to try and help condense some of the traffic from the 82 doors and 32 homes that we have down the street that kind of bottleneck at that point where Kerman and Cedar Tree connect. And that becomes really the only entry and exit point for the entirety of Prairie Hills, and 32 currently, plus the 47 additional lots to our neighborhood. So it poses several concerns for us, a lot of which have to do with safety. Traffic has only one way to go through, and currently there's only that yield sign. Hasn't really proven to do a whole lot in terms of slowing down traffic. Actually, right across the street, just last week at about 4:53 in the morning, our resident to the direct west of that bottleneck had a vehicle. We don't know if it was from our single-family homes or from our duplexes, but the camera caught a vehicle running right over their yard fixtures and doing some damage to his property as a result. That's been kind of an ongoing thing. Speeding continues to be an issue, and with there being only those one primary exit that they have to go through in that bottleneck, there's really no way of mitigating that at this present time. So that's been a concern. Several families with children, and in addition, it's kind of impacted our community. We've had 3 homes right now currently on Cedar Tree Street that have listed and have cited safety concerns as a big reason for why they're wanting to leave the city and find another house. They're all in them. Actually, I think there's 4, one at the bottleneck as well, is for sale by owner. So we're seeing some attrition in our neighborhood because of these concerns, and that's been something that is concerning to us. As well as a board, as we kind of listen to the needs of our homeowners. When I first moved to the development back in 2018, in November of that year, one of the homes right on that bottleneck had a gas line issue that caused Kansas Gas to come out and essentially rip up his driveway to repair the gas line. When that happens, because of the nature of natural gas and a pipeline, which working at Cook Industries we're kind of familiar with, they pretty much shut down through traffic at that time. It makes it very difficult to leave and exit, and so with there being only one way out, essentially through that bottleneck, it created a real problem for 55% of our homes, 32, plus the entirety of that duplex neighborhood. And our concern is if that were to happen again, all 32 of our residents, their families, and then the 82 doors that comprise the 41 duplexes that are currently constructed. That's not counting the additional that are under construction right now in Prairie Hills Addition, and the 47 lots that would potentially be built would be a big concern for us if that were to ever happen again on that street. You don't get to the Prairie Hills development, which is the duplexes, until you go further east on Cedar Tree Street, and then they have only really one entrance and exit, and that's onto Cedar Tree Street. So we're, as a development, really excited for what you all are pursuing in the downtown district just here. For several reasons, we think that the amenities and the quality of living that it will provide to our homeowners is going to be a really great addition to our neighborhood, and we're welcoming that and excited for it. However, one of the other reasons for that excitement is that it would give us an alternative exit, and an exit for the 82 doors and 41 duplexes and several other of our homeowners in the neighborhood out on Millsboro Street, just right outside of this building on the 61st Street. So what we are asking the council to consider in this resolution is to revise it such that the funds that are being used from the public would add to the infrastructure for these additional lots, that it would include either paving or graveling or using asphalt milling, some sort of way to connect this road together to give us an alternative exit to the development. And we know that that's not going to eliminate anything, and we know that there's plans for that district, but that would be somewhat of a cost-effective way to potentially provide an alternative exit for our 58 homes in the 41 duplexes to the north of us. So,
Thank you, Kyle.
thanks.
I just have a couple things to add. He said it beautifully. I'm Beth Colson. I have lived in Prairie Hills since 2014. I was actually the original, well, we're going to call it the original president of the Homeowners Association. The board. I stepped down in 2020. But I guess just a couple things. I don't have notes like he did. I'm just kind of playing it by the seat of my pants here. But when we very first started, that whole area was one development, and we ended up splitting it into two with the city. We worked with Mayor Ray Mann and Jack to get it split. And one of our requests when we split it into Prairie Hills and Prairie Hills Addition, which separated into duplexes and single-family homes, was that we get a separate entrance. But at the time, it wasn't a huge priority because there was only 10 or 12 duplexes, and our development hadn't been developed a lot. But since then, we've grown to the numbers that he has said, and it's huge. And as those years have gone on and more has been constructed, we've seen more and more issue with that. Just a couple things that he didn't mention. I've also noticed I leave right around the time that the school buses all come, and the school buses, the stop for, I think, the middle school is right at that bottleneck, which isn't even, it's not a T. It's more like I can't even describe the shape because it's not a straight three-way stop. It's like a weird thing. But the school bus stops right there in the morning and in the afternoon, and so we all have a large number of kids there at the same time that everybody's leaving for work and coming home from work. So in addition to everything that he said, which is accurate, and we've heard from my time on the board, which was from about 2015 to 2020, moving on, we've heard a lot of complaints from neighbors, a lot of people talking about leaving because of this, but specifically I've seen that huge, and there's just, because that street is almost straight, they go very quickly down that street, and so there have been a number of times where I've just waited for something catastrophic to happen, and I would just hate for us to make a change to it because something catastrophic happened. So I'm really, we've asked for this before. This isn't the first time that we've been here asking for an alternative exit, but I'm really, really, really hoping that you guys can help us do something because it's getting really out of control. So that's about all I have. He said most of it, but thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Beth. Okay. Any discussion? Tom?
I have a comment. We had the same problem in Saddlebrook, and they put a road in on the north side, a gravel road going out to Broadway, I think. It was there at one time. I assume it still is. Fire department required that because there was only one entrance and exit, and they can't get vehicles. If there's any blocking or anything in the roads, they can't get in there, so they had a second alternative route. And that might be something we need to do here as a temporary, because I've been down through there, and it is a bottleneck. If you got people parked on the road there, it's even a bigger problem. But I'm surprised Sedgwick County allowed this plat to continue without a second entrance.
There are two entrances into the neighborhood.
Right. Right. There's supposed to be two ways in, and right now it's
There
bottlenecked to go into the back with the one entrance.
Okay, going to the back of the neighborhood, yes, there's one, but there's Into the neighborhood itself, there are two entrances, in and out of the neighborhood.
When Saddlebrook back phase got going, there was only one way in. And they asked for a second driveway, and we did that. So that's kind of like what they're asking for here. It's a safety issue.
Okay.
So,
Any other discussion? Ben?
Mine's more just of a question, is in terms of what mechanisms can be used or are available to look in, and it's, obviously, we're not gonna answer this question tonight, but,
I actually have a little bit about that from my time on the board. Sorry, I'm jumping back up here. At the time, our treasurer looked into just some things. We weren't really sure what we as an HOA could do versus what the city had to do. And so our treasurer, it was prior to him, our treasurer at the time looked into some options, things like, he did a lot of research about, we ultimately found out that we actually can't do any of it without your all's approval, but it was things like painting lines on the side of the road to kind of make it appear like it's narrowing, creating roundabouts, lots of things that cost a lot of money. So there are some, we ended up with a yield sign, which we're very thankful for, but like Kyle said, it hasn't been as effective as we wanted it to be. So I really think based on the research that he did, and I have that record somewhere, but based on the research that he did, the most cost-effective way was to just open up another entrance somewhere. There is more options that he found, but they were a lot more intensive.
obviously, there's a lot that goes into the funding part of how we would look at that as well, because it's not just I mean.
I don't think it's something we can do tonight to
Yeah.
attach to these resolutions, but it is something for us to make special note of, that this is an issue there in their neighborhood. So thank you guys for coming tonight. That can't fix it tonight, but we'll keep it in mind. So, hearing buttons push, but I'm not getting anything, so.
I canceled out.
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Ben made a motion, Tom seconded. We've had some discussion. I see no further. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes 8-0. Item 14, discuss and consider resolution determining the advisability of the making of certain internal improvements in the city of Park City, Kansas, water for Prairie Hills Edition. Sean?
Yes, sir. Again, the petition was filed with the city clerk. In this particular case, as we're talking water improvements, so the improvements include a water distribution system, including necessary water mains, pipes, valves, hydrants, meters, and appurtenances to serve the area described as the improvement district, all in accordance with city standards, plans, and specifications, either prepared or approved by the city engineer. The estimated or probable cost of the proposed improvements is $132,000 to be increased on a pro rata rate of 1% per month from date of adoption. The improvement district is slightly different. It is lots 46 through 76, block 5, lots 1 through 6, block 6, Prairie Hills Edition, the city of Park City, Kansas. Method, again, is equally assessed between all lots, with 0% going towards the city and 100% paid by the improvement district.
Thanks, Sean. Ben?
Yeah, I'd make a motion to approve Resolution 1119-2022, a resolution determining the advisability of the making of certain internal improvements in the city of Park City, Kansas, making certain findings with respect thereto, and authorizing and providing for the making of the improvements in accordance with such findings, subject to letter of credit.
Thank you, Jim.
Second.
Good. Motion and a second. Any further discussion on this? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0. Move to item 15, discuss and consider resolution determining the advisability of the making of certain internal improvements in the city of Park City, Kansas. This is paving improvements for Prairie Hills Edition. Sean?
Again, this third petition filed with the city clerk is for paving. The improvements include necessary construction of pavement on a portion of Cedar Tree Circle, Newport Court, and a portion of Newport Street, with the drainage to be installed whether necessary to serve the area described as the improvement district, all in accordance with the city standards, plans and specifications prepared or approved by the city engineer. The estimated or probable construction cost is $325,000. The district to be assessed is lots 46 through 76, block 5, lots 1 through 6, block 6, Prairie Hills Edition, Park City. A method of assessment is equally between all lots, again, 0% to the city and 100% to the district.
Thank you, Sean. Jim?
I have no questions, so I would move to approve Resolution 1120-2022, a resolution determining the advisability of the making of certain internal improvements in the city of Park City, Kansas, making certain findings with respect thereto, and authorizing or providing for the making of the improvements in accordance with such findings, subject to letter of credit. Paving, Prairie Hills Edition.
Charlie?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Sean, I would ask you a question on this. Is this the final phase of Prairie Hills? Or will there be additional? And looking at the map that's attached there, it shows some stuff further to the east, but it looks like it doesn't connect off of, these are all ending in cul-de-sacs, other than Newport will go further
There's the pond down there,
south.
that around it.
There's Reserve D, but both of those cul-de-sacs, Cedar Tree and Newport Court,
No, it's not the final. If you take a look at it, Wexford Court and that to the far right side of the paper, that's still not going to be served yet at this time.
okay. So Wexford Court, and then with that Meadow Hill that's on the top, is that part of Prairie Hills?
That is part of Prairie Hills, yes. That's where most of the duplexes are, correct? Prairie Meadow Hill Street?
Because I'm looking at like Millsboro Circle,
There's Millsboro.
Yeah.
would be Millsboro Street.
No, that would be more, single-family homes. And it's actually called Millsboro now, I think. Wait.
Millsboro's right
Oh,
here.
yeah, okay. Yes, those are duplexes, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so that Millsboro, I mean, I'm assuming it's gonna go north, and that's what we're talking about, branching that out, so.
And that's the way Millsboro was originally platted back before this building was even built. The street that we come into City Hall was platted originally to connect. Obviously, that hasn't happened to this point.
Just wonder if it'd be possible to connect that to Beaumont, to the west. It looks like they line up just perfect.
We will bring back some options, sir. I do know that, 6-8 months ago, both Public Works and the Police Department kind of took a look at it and said, okay, what's more appropriate, stop sign or caution sign? And so we put in the yield sign first, according to the MUTCD, the guidance. That's been about 6-8 months, and then we just now brought this back up to sit there and say, okay, it's obviously not working the way that they would hope. But again, sometimes our job is to manage the expectations of what we can actually do. But we will take a look at it and bring back, hopefully, some alternatives to address their issue.
Great, thank you. Okay, we've had a discussion on this. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0. Okay, item 16, discuss and consider water and wastewater rates. Sean?
Okay, Matt, can I get control, please? Thank you. Okay, let's see, where do I want to start on this one? Hopefully everyone can see this from their screens up there. As you all know, back a couple weeks ago, Wilson Company completed their study. They came and presented during a workshop recommendations for improvements both to our water distribution system as well as to our sewer distribution system. They also, at the end of the study, recommended a rate increase in order to pay for some of those identified capital improvement projects. Their presentation was full of spreadsheets, and I know sometimes spreadsheets kind of wake some people out, so I've kind of just taken this and hopefully I can talk you through what I think hopefully we want to get to the bottom line. The first one is we're going to deal with water, and I just circled 3 numbers up there. The 3 numbers are all the same number because that's what we're looking for over the next 10 to 20 years. We are looking at something in the neighborhood of about $617,000 a year that we would like to bring in as additional revenue to tackle the 9 specified projects that they identified for the water distribution system. Now, again, all this is predicated on today's estimates and everything, and it doesn't account for what's going on inflation-wise. It's just the best numbers that we have today. So please keep that in mind that, again, we're trying to increase revenue on the water side, 617. So what's that occur down below, the projected annual revenue, currently we sit at about 1.755 mil on an annual basis. We're looking for that number to increase to somewhere around $2.2 million. Now, here's some things that we just all need to know about our city. First of all, we are very heavy when it comes to residential versus commercial. The vast majority of our community is residential. In other words, right now, both our water and sewer are broken down into two different rates. There's a base rate and a variable rate. If you increase the residential base rate just $1, that will gain you somewhere in the neighborhood of about $38,600 on an annual basis. But if you do that same $1 for every commercial and every industrial business in the community, it's only going to raise $2,600 in a year. So that tells you right there, we're about 70% heavy on residential versus commercial or industrial. So that's the base rate. And when it comes to water, the base rate, all that entitles you to is service. It doesn't come with any preconceived notion that you're getting X amount of gallons straight from the get-go. You start paying a variable rate straight from the get-go. And right now, currently, our variable rate is 21 cents per 100, or as the way we refer to it in there, $2.10 per thousand is what we do. If, just so that you know, if you increase that variable rate just 1 penny on the residential, that generates $23,500. So what I'm trying to say to you tonight is, even though Wilson and Company has come up with 3 different recommendations, 3 different ways of attacking this particular issue, Council does have the freedom and flexibility to say, can we do something a little bit different? Can we increase this one, decrease this one? In the end, those circle red numbers that we're looking for, that's what we're ultimately trying to come up with. So here are the 3 options that Wilson has described. The first one is column 1, option 1, where it says a uniform increase. This shows a uniform base increase. It doesn't matter whether you're commercial, residential, or industrial, of $3.50 more on a base rate, and 10 cents increase in the variable rate. The way that ultimately calculates out is for the residential, that's about a 26% increase in water. That's substantial. For the business commercial, because they are a smaller portion thereof, it's about a 23% increase for them. Their option number 2 shows a $2.58 increase in the base rate and a 10% variable rate increase for residential, but this is the one area to where it is a little bit more heavily laden when it comes to commercial industrial. It's a $5.52 base rate increase for them, as well as a 15-cent increase on the variable. Overall, the way that calculates is 23.75% increase for residential and 35.21% increase for commercial or industrial. Then the last option. This one shows a constant base rate. There is not a single change as far as the residential base rate. Right now, they're currently paying $21.42 as their base rate. That's what it's being proposed. Creating the same projected revenue that we would be looking at. It's about $1.02, and that's about $5 your average house. And the rates very competitive. Even if we the most expensive, take it all the way up to $40.42, we are still in the exact same boat that we are more competitive than different is they broke columns are those projects that they think that we need to address with year, and the last column is those projects that affect us to address years 10 and 20. and there's a little bit capital. So again, the circles here, first years, trying to generate somewhere in the neighborhood of 5. Last 10 years between is 578 is located on those projects identified our left-hand column. So the number down at the bottom, 10 years to generate 1.9 million in 11 years dollars revenue. So different ways to look at it. Here are some of the lists, like the first one, again, $1 increase base gives you about $37. We same water we increase that. Thing about sewer versus water is sewer in 1,000 with base rate, water does not do that. And so because of that, changing one penny doesn't generate money. In other words, if you increase 1 penny on a variable for residents, that only generates $5,000, whereas 1 penny on the water rate, that's what did nearly 324. So 3 different options. Option, the first one would be column B1, which is a unit increase 7% across the board. Commercial, industrial, all get a base rate increase that's equal to each other, as well as each other. Second, column B2 shows a modest increase of $2.40 in the base rate for residential, 20% increase variable residential. Commercial, it's a near 8 increase to the base rate, 28 cents increase on the rate. Overall, it projects to be 23% residential, 40% increase commercial and industrial. Finally, the increase base rate of $1.94. Much increase rate of 30% industrial. Overall, percent residential 44. And as far as how this compares to off originally the lowest of all. Even if we were to go with the most expensive or take it up to just 32, puts it to where parks with the least expensive in one city. So prior to the meeting, I gave a brief history of water rates going back to last year. Like I said, council has been very, very prudent, very modest as far as concerned they're doing. Certain times to where the water rate went up, and certain times when the sewer rate went up. Last was most notable were in 2017 and 2019, and really you start savings towards the future sewer. It went up 3% the sewer in 2015. When COVID hit, so that 21 an appropriate. Again, there's never a time I will sit there and say, currently the average water bill is 90 cents. Least impactful recommendation that goes $1 a month. There's a lot. I said up to 32 or 21 increase. We all that even if that have water consumption on a monthly basis. Right now, expected monthly bill is $5.68. Least in, but still guideline, they're go up to $78.82. We're talking a $13 difference. But for that $13, new necessary to not operate and maintain, actually replace distribution system to make certain 30, 50 years down the road, our business still. That, is there any questions? Any questions you guys want?
Well, you know, for years. I've seen and listened to staff tell us that we're done fine on our water surveys. And now we're talking 27% increase a year. I'm sorry, you got 27% and a year we're fine. Sorry, I'm skeptical. And for the rest of the cities, that to me, the only thing I'm interested in residents pay. You know, Valley Center, some of them, you know, different systems, because they're relevant. The only people that would be relevant to us would be Blair. We share the plant with them. And for some reason, they seem to about their much to us, they're on the plant. And, but I, you know, I don't know why last year we were fine on our rates, and now we're 20%. I'm
Due to COVID and the economy, we just forgot making any changes. In
well,
the last
I'll
2
tell you,
years.
to fix it down. And you guys, maybe that's fine. You guys have a lot of money. You know, some of you. And everything else is that's a
We paid for experts to come in here and take a look at what our system is and look 20 years out in the future and say, hey, how are we going to provide water and sewer for a resident? So that's commendable. And if it takes us 23 years, we're still doing better than most communities that are not doing anything. The only question is whether it is more palatable to take one big hit once, or whether it's more palatable to sit there and say, wait a minute, we're looking at 3 years of rate increases. That's a decision that the governing body will need to make and not staff. That's why there's no recommendation on this. There's several different ways to attack the problem. All I know is we have a qualified engineer's report that we trust very much so, stand behind 100%, that they have done a phenomenal job identifying the system that we have, its limitations, its capabilities, and what we need to do to preserve that and carry it into the future. We would be remiss in our duties if all we do is just take that and put it on a shelf and not do something with it. So,
Did they come up with that 20-year number
Yes, they did.
because they
Yes, they
did,
did.
was that based off of, they think in 20 years we're gonna have major issues if we did nothing? Or what, how did that 20-year number, how did that come up?
When we sat down with them, one of the things that is a little bit different than the way previously it has been done, the way I understand it. Again, only been here 3 years, but previously it was more a mathematical equation as far as what we should do with rates. You sit there and look at operations and maintenance, and as long as you're covering the bills, life is good. But it was never looking at the actual system. Like I said, back, I believe 2003 was the last time that the system was actually looked at a little bit more in depth, and Wilson and the company was the one who did that and kind of said that's where we picked up from it. But they were charged, it was in their scope and fee to come up with a rate recommendation. And usually rate recommendations are made on either a 5 or 10 or 20-year basis. They chose 20 years and said, looking out, here are the recommendations that we, so arbitrary, but.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Ben?
Yeah, I do appreciate Tom and Charlie's comments there as far as even stair stepping to some degree. I think the flip side to that, just to remember though, is that, and I think Sean even mentioned this in the beginning, is none of this addresses any inflation issues continuing on. That's the wild card in this. The second part to that though, or the flip side to that still, original comment is the fact that in stair stepping at a couple years, what might be, 23% or 25% or 21% or whatever, wherever people are landing at, in stair stepping it, if we're cutting it back, we'll have to adjust for that inflation in there because next year the pricing will be different and such. So I think it's a very good idea to consider here, but I do think that 21 or 23, whatever we fall at in a general idea, does become 23 or 25% in an extended period of walking this up. But that said, that still might be a much better option because again, dealing with the fact that we are talking about a large portion of our citizens that either are on lower income or on fixed incomes. And I think that's something that we ought to consider before we whack them with 25%.
George?
Earlier I said this is not my first rodeo, and it's not. And I was on staff for a lot of years here. I've sat through a lot of meetings. I remember before we ever had this water plant, we had the old system. And I remember as we came through this, the lectures we'd get, well, the more we grow, we'll get more people on here and our water and sewer will get cheaper. Well, that was a lie. But that's what we were told. That's what we were told. And now we're being told this. And I believed it then, and boy, was I a fool. And so I asked myself, am I supposed to believe this? And, I've seen it. I can still see Jack sitting there talking. If we do this, this, and this, we get more people on here, our rates will be cheaper. Well, they're not cheaper. You're telling us we got to increase them. And, basically, I'm tired of, I'm speaking the truth. I'm tired of hearing people tell me stuff that's not true. They've told us stuff. I've heard it. Tom's heard it. Tom knows what I'm talking about. He's heard these conversations. I sat through it for years. And basically, I'm just sick of it. That's my honest opinion. And like I say, it's not my first rodeo, but man, it's getting close to my last. I won't say no more, John.
George Glover?
Yeah, we've talked about raising taxes before on the citizens and mill levy and everything else. I think to this point, we've kind of kicked the can down the road on these different issues. Sooner or later, we're going to have to deal with this stuff, guys. And this, being water and sewer, is one of those things that you have to have in the community, you have to have with the businesses, and we're going to have to deal with it, whether it's inflation, where everything is going up. Everything's going up. For me, for you, the people on fixed incomes, but it comes down to, with the increased economic stuff that's coming into town with the businesses and the different subdivisions, there's going to be an increased need. And with that increased need, we're going to have to have more lift stations and places to counter that. So we're going to have to deal with it either now or later. If we deal with it later, is it going to cost the citizens much more as far as inflation and what it's going to cost if we don't deal with it tonight? I personally like option number 3, where the emphasis is more on the commercial as opposed to putting it so much on our citizens at this point. I get the fact that there are a lot of people on fixed incomes. You're going to have that in every community. But the fact remains, are we dealing with this progressively in the future? And if we're not, are we going to continue to kick the can down the road and deal with it later, when in fact I think we can deal with it now? Thank you.
Tom?
I was gonna say there's some offset. That's broken water lines, valves that don't work, fire hydrants that don't work, that need to be repaired. So some of this, again, I would like to see it like maybe on the residential halved for the first year. On option 3, half it, and then maybe next year, year after, come back and tag on the other half. And that would be more palatable. The other thing, and you touched on it, you said 3,000 gallons of sewer based on the water rate is not, there's no increase if it's 3,000 or less?
It depends on what you do with the base rate.
Well, my question is, the numbers we're looking at here is based on 5,000 gallons, right?
That is the average monthly bill, that is correct. But yes, right now, for sewer, the base rate is $27.06.
Okay.
Out of the least expensive, any one of those options it proposes going up to $29. So automatically, it's going to be $1.94 more expensive. But that does include 3,000 gallons. So if there is somebody that uses 3,000 gallons or less, that would be the only thing that they would see is $1.94.
Okay, and it'd be the same way with water?
No, water is a variable rate straight from the get-go.
Right, and that's $1 a thousand, about approximately, going up? It goes from 210 to 335 or something like that.
Which one are you talking about, though?
Water now. I'm trying to figure out the impact. We've got people who use 3,000 gallons of water a month, and they monitor it. They know
I mean, it would either
what
go
they're
to,
doing. And
depends on which plan
they're
you
the ones
guys,
that can't stand the increases, huh?
it depends on which plan you guys pick, but it's 35 per 100 or 40 per 100.
If it were option 3, which so far I've heard at least 3 or 4 people, the difference on the, there's absolutely no, on the water side, no increase to the base rate.
Right.
And it's 14 cents for the variable. So in that particular case, that's 14 cents per 100. So if you say that somebody uses 3,000 gallons, that'd be 3,000 times 350. That's $10.50 when they used to be paying $6.30. So in that particular case, it's $4.40 difference.
Right, and then on the other side of it, there'd be another $1.90 or something like that for sewer.
Less
So
than
we're
$6.
talking $5.
Yes.
Okay.
If somebody uses just 3,000, but the whole entire study was predicated on the Kansas average of 5,000 gallons per household.
I understand.
So,
I was just trying to say that, or define that there's an issue with the lower users that would not take the hit that
Yeah.
5,000.
That's what option 3 does.
lower, if you're
Right.
single individual, don't use much water, yes, you're talking $6.
Okay, and then to abate that, what I was talking about is make this 2 stages and hit half now and half maybe a year from now or 2 years from now for the residential, which would defer some money a little bit, but it wouldn't impact it that much. I'm
Again-
trying to help George. You know what he's talking about here.
Hey, I just speak
No,
my
I'm
opinion.
looking at options here, so.
So, okay, I'm sorry, you
All right,
done?
I'm done.
I'll make it plain, I can afford this, but I can afford this, you know, that's not a problem for me, but I represent people. And I would challenge anybody that thinks this is a good deal to go over to Senior Center on Wednesday when they're having their luncheon and look the seniors in the eye and tell them you think it's a good deal.
So we've gone around, I mean, I think pretty much everybody's talked at least once, so I want to throw some comments in, but, I mean, I just want to reiterate, and George wasn't here for when we did the photos and he saw all the stuff that came into, but we talk about Ward 3 is a lot of older folks that are on fixed incomes, and I agree with that. I think that's why I say option 3 is the less impactful on those folks. But I think the other thing we have to remember is the infrastructure in Ward 3 is who needs this the most. Because when they have pipes leak or they have sewer lines go back into their house, they're gonna be the most impacted. And that's why we're doing this, is so those folks don't get that. I mean, those pipes over there, I mean, we saw what they were. I mean, they're in terrible shape. And, I mean, we run water to fire hydrants, we run water to everybody's residence. And again, those sewer lines are very old. And, you know, we talked about doing the GPS locates on all of our infrastructure, and so we know where valves are, so we know where, everything's at. And this is a way that we serve these people. So you gotta remember, we've talked about rates increasing, inflation, we got all that. Well, they've increased for us too. I mean, we don't have a treasure chest in the basement of City Hall that we just go dig into and pay it off. I mean, that's how we get our money. That's how we take care of our people. That's how we provide services. That's how we have parks, we have libraries, we have police force, we have, all the services that we provide to people is from that. So, I just remember that this rate increase affects people in brand new areas that have brand new pipes. It affects everybody in town, but most of the infrastructure needs are in the older areas. So, and remember that, what's a 3% increase this year turns into 6 next year. So, like George mentioned a while ago, we kicked the can, and truthfully we did. If we would have raised our rates in 2020, when COVID hit, if we would have just done 3%, we probably would have knocked 6% off of this, and then done 3% the next year. We'd have knocked more off of it, and this would be less impactful. And this is my same thing on mill levy increases is, you don't do mill levy increases. A neighboring town to us, George and Tom will probably remember this, but a neighboring town to us, they didn't raise taxes for years and years and years. Then all of a sudden, the foot dropped, and they raised their mill levy like 14 or 15 mills in 1 year. And it's hard on residents, and this is something to learn from for us. The other thing to think about too, we raise one time at whatever the rate was, the 20%, or you raise it one time and get it done, or you're gonna raise the rates 3 years in a row. So just remember, every time that increases, you're getting tagged with raising rates again. And the other thing I'll say, like what George was mentioning, I remember hearing those things. The more houses, the more volume we sell, the cheaper rates are. But I think we got to put that in perspective too. It doesn't mean your rates are going to go down because you're selling more water. It means you've got more volume, and you can buy stuff cheaper. And if you look in comparison, like with the rates that he had on the screen with Bel Air, they haven't grown as much of us, and their rates were way higher than what ours are. And I think that's probably what Jack was referring to. It doesn't mean our rates are going to be lower. It just means they're not going to need to increase as much as often. So that's it. Sorry. Brandy.
I think John makes some excellent points. I think we're all on the same page. None of us are excited about raising rates, but it's an unnecessary evil that has to be done in order for things to get accomplished. And with that, I'll move to approve water rate option number 3 and sewer rate option number 3.
Ben.
I'm a second for discussion here on that one. I do agree that in doing the flat, I think on the water, originally on the water one there, was leaving everything basically the same as far as, is it water or was it sewer? I can't remember. That the impact was even between commercial and residential. I think that's a bad way to go. I do wonder on here, because the difference between Plan 2 and Plan 3 is 2%, a little less than 2%, between residential and, on residential, sorry, between Plan 2 and Plan 3, but it's about a 7 or 8% difference between commercial. So to hit a commercial business with about a 44% increase versus a 35% increase, what does that do to our business moving forward?
I get your point, but I'm sitting here looking at it. When your businesses are so small, such an increase makes a more drastic impact. That's the whole reason why you can make a smaller change with residential and still not have that much. When you sit there, the difference, look at it on an average 5,000 gallon commercial business, which there are probably not too many average 5,000 gallon commercial businesses, but nevertheless, we're talking a commercial business, their water bill is going to go from $50 to $53, $3 difference. But yet that's 7% increase because there are so few businesses out there. That's the reason why.
Yeah, and I get, we're talking existing, I'm thinking future. And when we're talking about commercial and such moving forward, if we're trying to attract places, again, like more Amazons or things along, now granted, I get it, Amazon's kind of a one-off in terms of size and scope, but if we're talking about that part, then yes, 8% is a lot more different than $3, and that's actually gonna be $6 because it's gonna be sewer and water that are affected at that 7 or 8% difference.
And in that particular case, there's no way that I could say with 100% certainty that this would not negatively impact a business that was sitting here looking at Park City. The one thing that I would sit there and say, though, is in the 3 years' time that I've been here, there's only been one business that have said, what's your water and sewer rates? And they wanted 94 million gallons a year. They wanted 1/4 of what the city could produce. That's why they were asking the question. As far as our competitiveness, that's when I would go, I understand Councilmember Capps that says, I don't care about those other cities, but a business, they're gonna wanna know what's the rates compared to Bel Air Valley Center, and we have Interstate 135 running. I don't think that this would detract from our competitiveness when it comes to industry or commercial.
So are you saying your recommendation is 3 then?
I am not recommending anything, sir. That's,
Okay, that's what I was getting there. Was
like I
that-
said, there are so many different ways. Great discussion tonight, because yes, it could be a 23-year plan, could it be a 20-year plan? To me, the recommendation is, I stand behind what Wilson and Company has done. They did the study nearly 20 years ago, and the city, quite honestly, didn't take much and do much with that.
Right.
This is going to generate the revenue to where we can do that, to where we can assure our residents water, safe, potable drinking water in the future, so.
George Capps.
Well, there's ways we can do this. First place, this is not a poor city. We're not a poor city. There's other ways this can be done. And I know they talk about funds, this fund, that fund. Bottom line is, it's all one purse. It's all Park City's money. I don't care if it's the streets and highways or in the police department or water and sewer. It's all Park City's money. And there's ways this can be done. I know things is going up. I sat and listened to the chief with his bid for cars. I think in 2002, I think my bid for 2 police cars was like $42,000 for 2 cars. And things has went up. Things are more expensive. I understand that. I don't understand why we haven't been doing something about this a long time ago, you know, instead of just dumping it on everybody. My worst part about it, Sean, is it came all at once. You know, it just hit it. You hit them right between the eyes with it. And that part bothers me because, like John said, we could have been implementing this along, you know, a buck here, a buck there, instead of just hitting people with a 27% increase. I'm sorry, I just the way I am.
I think the worst thing we can do is nothing.
I
got to tell you, as someone that's been on this council, as you guys have too, I mean, this is our fault.
What I'm saying, John, is there's other ways we could do this.
We should have done this years ago.
There's other ways this could be done. Just because some engineering firm says this is the way it's got to be done, do we not think for ourselves, or do we have to have an engineering firm tell us what we're going to do? Or do we have the brains to think for ourselves, to think outside the box? Or are we just in a box where contractors come along and tell us how we're gonna do business? That's where I'm coming from. Why do we have to do what Wilson and Company says? Who put them in charge of our citizens in this city? Who put them in charge?
We did.
But we are in charge.
We hired them and paid them to make this report for us. I mean, we
They
did.
made a report.
And if you remember, I mean, recently, you even mentioned this in a prior council meeting, that we keep paying for all these studies and all these reports to come back to us, and we do nothing.
Yeah,
Here, we're trying to do something.
I wished we'd have done something a long time ago, John.
I will too. Here's what is my pledges, I feel like for us, is let's not have a council in 3, 4, 5, 6 years say the same thing. This should have been done.
Yeah.
Because it's not gonna go away. The area in the Horseshoe and Ward 3, all these areas, they're not getting newer. They're getting worse.
I can't support it, but that's neither here nor there. I'm sure you got the votes.
Oh,
But I'll
sorry.
be glad to go tell the seniors, I didn't vote for this. You guys do what you want.
That's easy. Kyle?
Yeah, I just want to say that, you know, I understand where Councilmember Capps is coming from and everything. You know, I make $56,000 a year, and I raise my entire family of 6 people on my income. So I can stand here and I will tell you that, you know, any increase is going to hurt my pocket. There's no doubt about that. And there's no shame in that either. That being said, though, I do applaud us for actually doing something as a governing body and being proactive instead of being like our neighboring municipalities and being reactive. I can remember a time in 2012 working for the city of Wichita mainline labor water distribution system. I worked over 80 hours of overtime the week of Christmas and didn't get to see my first daughter's Christmas because I was out there fixing a main system for a governing body that chose to be reactive instead of proactive. So with that being said, moving forward, I would like to see our city develop some sort of program to, I know we have the fellowship program that pays some water bills, but let's look at like a water conservation program to specifically hone in on inefficiencies. We talk about all these homes in the Horseshoe area, the older parts of town, people with fixed incomes. A lot of those, a leaky toilet, you know, runs a lot of gallons of water, and it really does. And you don't notice it, but it will. Once you switch that, it will affect that water bill. So I would push us more towards looking in a conservation rebate program, much like the exterior grant program that we have. But that's all I have. So I appreciate it.
Thank you. Charlie?
You know, I think everybody's in agreement that something has to be done. I mean, we have infrastructure that needs to be repaired. But I'm an advocate for looking at all our options. I don't think we have, if we don't make a decision tonight that our water and sewer is gonna fall apart. Sean, could you bring, if we did, like we looked at a stair-step option, is 2 weeks enough time to get that back to us? Or could you, more than just these, I mean, I think option 3, everybody, obviously, option 1 and 2, nobody's really advocated for, but if we did, like Tom said, half and then half the next year, can you bring something back so we can look at that? I mean, is that a time frame that you could do, 2 weeks?
I could do it in 20 minutes. The question is, like I said, it's already been asked and answered by Wilson and Company, because we sat there and said, okay, let's look at a 3-year program, 12, 8, and 5. Comes up with about 25%. And they said, well, it'd be closer to 12, 10, and 7 because of the fact that you have inflation and you got to catch up where you have not caught up on the first 1 to 2 years when, you know what, does that make sense?
I'm sorry, no, not,
Okay.
I didn't catch it.
If the target value is 25%, in the first year you're only 12%, well, you're missing the target. So that way, in other words, you're gonna have to increase it a little bit more than 25 because you wouldn't be doing 25 for 10 or 15 or 20 years. You'd only be doing 25 for the last 17.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I see what
So
you're
it's a
saying.
little bit plussed up. But other than that, the amount that you're generating, you're just sitting there saying, okay, under this program, you're going to get to the point to where it's not until year number 3 that you are actually generating the amount of revenue that you need to fully fund all 9 programs in water or sewer.
Okay, that makes sense.
So in other words, if that first project was supposed to be done in year 2, that you're saving some money up, year 2, you're probably going to do it in year 3. So it's not changing it drastically, it's just pushing it out from a 20-year plan to about a 21, 22, 23-year plan.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
As far as the numbers, it's 3 years from now, you'd end up pretty close to where we're at right now.
Tom?
I'd like to say that we discussed doing this study in 2003, and it never materialized because we never did anything with it. We were bonding CCUA at the time, so there was a lot of other things getting money spent on with water and sewer. We just did the new plant on water and sewer, so that diverted everything. I mean, there was no funding available. Nobody wanted to talk about raising sewer rates anymore and water rates, so that's why we didn't go work any of this stuff.
Sir, no judgment. I mean, like I
No,
said,
I'm
that's the
just
whole
saying.
reason why I provided the history that 2012 or 2002 actually was the first time that you go back that finally CCUA is getting established, Bel Air, you're partnering up with them.
Right.
Then nothing happens for the next 10 years.
That's,
I mean, if you look at the last 20 years, it has been a very, very modest increase. And that's to be applauded, but that also at the same time.
but I'd also like to make a comment that it's not just Ward 3 that's got issues. Ward 2's got issues, Ward 1's got issues. There's some pipes in the ground that need to be repaired in every ward, so, on water, and there's valves that don't work. And this, if we have a water line break, you can't shut the valve, we lose a lot of water every time it happens, so. Done? Done.
George?
Well, yeah, I'll tell a story. Maybe that's what aggravates me about this a little bit. But you know, here, a couple, 3 months ago, I replaced my still, and I go on those dual flush. And there's things people can do. And I cut my rate about $6 a month, but now you're gonna get it back. But there's things people can do. There's appliances and stuff out there that you can get, and you can drastically cut your water usage. You know, they work great, but you know, you gotta. It's not personal with me.
Okay, we've had a good discussion on this, I feel like. Brandy made a motion to approve water rate option 3 and sewer rate option 3, seconded by Ben Saucedo. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, raise your hand.
I'm opposed.
Motion passes 6-2. With Charlie and George Capps against. All right, flew through that. So governing body reports, is something else I'd like to kind of re-implement that we used to do a long time ago, but those who serve on boards, or liaisons to committees or whatever, at our governing body reports, if you guys would just kind of pass on maybe some of the stuff that's going in there, just to keep everybody kind of updated on what's happening. Jim, go ahead. Obviously not tonight, I know you're not ready, so, but Jim, go ahead.
That was a great discussion, especially on this last topic tonight, so I appreciate everybody's thoughts and trying to figure out a hard one there. I'm never excited about raising rates, but anyway, just thanks for all the dialogue.
I have nothing.
George?
Well, you know, I'd like to see the city offer incentives for people to do things to cut their usage. We could do that. We've got incentive programs. And like I say, there's ways you can cut that water use. And I'd like to see that happen.
Do you know of any?
Pardon?
Do you know of anything, like resources we could use? Like
Sure.
programs?
City of Wichita's
Oh,
water
not
conservation
program, but I mean, we've got an incentive program that we will help people with certain things.
No, I mean like reduce your usage and stuff. Like, you're talking about government programs that would aid?
No, I'm talking about, there's appliances, like I was talking about your dual flush stools. That will greatly reduce your water usage. And there's things you can do. I was surprised, John, I was honestly surprised. Just that one thing, it cut my water bill from $73 to $68. I was surprised, and that was too much running. I can't believe it made that big a difference. But there's ways that, and we could help people do that.
Okay. Tom?
I don't have anything.
Wow.
I don't have anything.
Ben?
Yeah, I would echo what Kyle and George both said concerning some sort of conservation program there that would be of use. Also, just a little bit lighthearted-ish, but not as, Thursday, April 28th is National Superheroes Day. And to the point here with, the old comment, not all superheroes wear capes. I would challenge each one of our citizens to find a cause in which they can donate and support somebody, some charity, some organization that's doing good throughout our community, and find a way to be a hero in somebody else's life. There's so many great programs like the Wichita's Littlest Heroes, Big Brothers Big Sisters. They could go on, but Thursday, National Superheroes Day. Be a superhero for someone.
Yeah, we're talking about water. There is a program through DCF. It's the Emergency Water Assistance Program. It's a one-time payment for folks that meet the income guidelines. So if you have a disconnect notice with your water or wastewater, there's resources out there to help you. So you can go to the DCF website and inquire more information about this program. Thank you.
Charlie?
I have nothing other than a question. Why don't we ever start on this side of the room for the comments? Because all the good stuff is done by the time it gets over here.
Better looking over here.
Sorry, I have nothing. Thank you.
So, just a few things. We did the Gary Davis tree dedication this last week on April 20th, which was his birthday. So it was a good tribute. Staff planted a really nice tree that's there in the park by the community building. Some council was able to make it. It was during business hours, so certainly understand why some couldn't make it. But it was a good thing, and his family was very thankful. So the other thing I was going to mention is on our home permits for the year. Right now, January we had 4, February we had 2, and then March we had 1. And last year it was 9, 16, and 4. So last year at this time we were at 29, this year we're at 7. So that has changed, and I would mention that one of the developers here actually hit us up and asked about the incentive program again to re-implement it because he's noticed such a slowdown in new builds. So final thing is we have some movement in the discussion that we had on the de-annexation issue on 61st Street. So I'm optimistically hoping that we'll have an agreement probably at the next council meeting if everything goes well. We think there'll be a sunset date. There'll be about 20 to 25 years. We'll just see what Wichita agrees to, but the discussions have gone really well so far. So that's all I have. After that, I would entertain a non-debatable motion.
Yeah,
Ben?
so moved.
Charlie?
Second.
Motion by Ben, seconded by Charlie. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Good meeting. Thank you.